past your bedtime, ain't it?
You'll be the one taking a nap.
Come tuck me in then.
Round 1, fight.
The rebooted Mortal Kombat from 2011, also known as Mortal Kombat 9, did everything for the series that it needed to do, taking the fighting back to a two-dimensional plane while tightening the gameplay to modern-day standards and amping up the gore meant that Mortal Kombat was back and back in a huge way. Mortal Kombat's new quality meant it could be lauded for its violence as much as its deep and accessible fighting mechanics, a first in its decades-long history. Mortal Kombat X's X is symbolic of a new generation in multiple ways, introducing itself to a new generation of consoles along with adding multiple new characters to its iconic roster. But does this X mark the spot? Let's find out here in this review of Mortal Kombat X. MKX builds off what MK9 built almost flawlessly. Managing the super meter, knowing when and how to attack, and fighting in general has a similar cadence of that found in 2011's reboot, although everything here has been made smoother, quicker, and deeper. Those versed in MK9's or even Injustice's fighting classes will already have some sort of a leg up given the obvious parallels between each, despite MKX's newfound and much appreciated agility. The newfound agility isn't too apparent until both are compared side by side and made even more apparent during gameplay since pokes are more effective and combos come more quickly. It's a welcome change to the rock-solid foundation. Rock-solid foundation or not, developer NetherRealm has found ways to add and refine the systems without soiling what made the core combat so special. MK9's influences are the most visible, but parts of Injustice have slithered into MKX. Interactables, which can be turned off with a button press before a match, have returned and are now a fair part of the fight. A refilling meter limits spamming, and being able to block any of the offensive ones doesn't let matches devolve into environmental abuse like Injustice. Other more hardcore systems like enhanced throws, block breakers, enhanced specials, and running have been added to widen the available strategy pool, giving players who wish to swim in the deep end proper depth to explore. Once you figure out how to use running to extend combos or utilize enhanced throws to change your mix-up game, you'll begin to appreciate the inclusion of these systems in addition to how fluid and quick each is when compared to past entries. Mortal Kombat has been made into a more competitive and complex series, but the relatively low bar of accessibility of the core mechanics lets the game be more inclusive. The core mechanics stretch to every iteration of the 24 combatants. Instead of having one version of each fighter, everyone comes with 3 different variations that specialize in a specific area. A handful of attacks and specials are constant, along with certain moves every variation can call their own. For example, every Scorpion has the kunai and leg slide, but one version specializes in fire-based attacks, while another focuses on swords, and the last one can summon hellish demons. On the surface, it almost triples the roster and gives everyone more choices while picking a fighter. On a deeper level, it yields flexibility along with welcoming a bigger potential for tactical play. Feeling overwhelmed by the huge pool of possible attacks to defend against is balanced out by the incredible, well, variation of the fighting, even if the game does a poor job of conveying the unique abilities of each variant. Fighting games thrive off the thrill of learning your opponent's weaknesses, and the variation system is an extremely intelligent way to stretch the most out of the roster and make for a deeply replayable experience. Most of the roster plays a role within the story mode. MKX isn't tied to the age-old tournament, but rather the return and wrath of the fallen elder god Shinnok. His all-powerful amulet acts as the MacGuffin, being the object that everyone wants and the focus of the entire plot. It changes hands more than most small coins and brings everyone together for the wrong reasons. This Goose Chase's overarching theme of old versus new is presented well when the spunky new generation is juxtaposed against their iconic elder relatives. Piecing together the backstories and relationships through flashbacks and interactions between the youthful chunk of the cast is held up well by each's spunk and cheerful naivete, which gives the player reason enough to invest into each fresh face. Superb pacing of these events ensures that your focus is fixated on the TV and not your phone, since cutscenes lead to quicktime events and then seamlessly into fights. Not a second is dedicated to loading screens, so your attention span never has the chance to wander. It is a shorter experience overall that could have benefited from more meat and development, but what is here is entertaining, even if it isn't as memorable. Everyone, however, does remember MK9's flawed netcode. While your results are heavily dependent on your internet connection, MKX's online experience is both smooth and girthy. Waiting in a virtual line and witnessing the king defend his or her throne in King of the Hill is an obvious nostalgic pool that is smooth, simple, and a blast to partake in. Regular ranked matches work well too, even if it is hard to find an opponent with a similar skill level as you, since it prioritizes speed over finding an equally skilled opponent. Lag isn't a huge issue, and outside of a few matches, inputs for me were usually deceptively on point. Again, your results may vary. The offline set of modes reflects the online offerings. The classic tower topped off by a not too cheap boss is exactly what you'd expect, but the living towers are something more unorthodox. MKX rotates weekly, daily, and hourly towers over the useless static minigame towers of past titles. Weekly towers are the most creative and rewarding, while daily and hourly ones merely slap on a modifier or two and call it a day. Outside of collecting said modifiers, these daily and hourly towers are just mildly amusing distractions that might be something to infrequently dabble with and earn coins in. All of these modes yield coins, which can be spent at the all-new and greatly improved Crypt. The Crypt is basically its own dungeon crawler light, complete with secrets, gear, and puzzles that make what could have been just a bland menu worth all the extra work. Scouring for secrets and chests was a great, inventive, interactive way to make the metagame of collecting and spending coins a more satisfying and involving process. Barbaric fatalities, brutal X-ray super moves, extremely satisfying brutalities, and just an obsession with over-the-top comical violence remain the fractured backbone of Mortal Kombat X. And while the series has disgustingly topped itself in those categories, it's much more than that here in MKX. Highlight reel gore can now match the depth of the fighting system that has been streamlined and made more complex thanks to the new variation system. MKX just had to not tamper with what MK9 had so successfully established. Seeing how MKX added, refined, and improved just about everything decidedly makes Mortal Kombat X a flawless victory. Mortal Kombat X gets a 9.5 out of X. Gets a 9.5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching, and my name is Michael Larry, and I'm signing off. Later!
Finish him! Cassie wins. Fatality.